Right now, you're probably wearing a jacket, a hoodie, or at least a shirt. You didn't spend much time thinking about it. You just put it on and walked outside. Now, imagine doing the same thing 100,000 years ago, except you couldn't. A wolf was born with a thick coat. A mammoth carried its own winter protection. Ancient humans had neither. Our skin was exposed. Our bodies had almost no natural insulation. By every biological measure, we looked completely unprepared for the cold. And yet, this nearly hairless species eventually spread into some of the harshest environments on Earth. So how did ancient humans survive without the fur that every other cold-adapted mammal already had? The answer is more complicated than it first appears. This isn't just a story about what humans wore. It's about a biological problem that should have stopped our species long before we reached the frozen north. How did humans survive after losing one of nature's greatest defenses against the cold? To answer that, we first need to go back to a time when losing fur wasn't a weakness at all. In fact, it may have been one of the greatest advantages our ancestors ever evolved. Picture East Africa hundreds of thousands of years ago. The ground shimmers beneath the blazing sun. Every step kicks up dry dust. Out here, the cold isn't trying to kill you, the heat is. This is where our early ancestors spent countless generations adapting to life on the open savanna. Some evidence suggests that over time they gradually lost much of their thick body hair. In return, humans developed an unusually effective ability to cool themselves through sweat. That may have allowed them to travel farther, endure longer hunts, and survive in landscapes where overheating could be just as deadly as hunger. For thousands of generations, this body worked remarkably well. But evolution only solves the problems of today. It doesn't prepare you for tomorrow. And when some human groups eventually began moving beyond the warmth of Africa, the same body that once kept them alive was about to face a danger it had never been built to survive. Picture yourself standing in a cold wind with nothing covering your skin. At first, it doesn't feel deadly, just uncomfortable, but your body has already started losing heat. Every breath carries warmth away. Every gust of wind strips away more. Your muscles begin to tighten. Your fingers grow numb. Simple tasks become harder. Your body burns precious energy just to stay warm. If it loses heat faster than it can produce it, your core temperature starts to fall. That is when the real danger begins. You don't have to be buried in snow. You don't need a blizzard. Even a cool, wet day can become deadly if your body cannot hold on to its heat. Some researchers believe that exposure to wind, rain, and cold temperatures posed a constant challenge for early humans moving through unfamiliar landscapes. A long journey, an unexpected storm, or even soaked skin after crossing a river could turn an ordinary day into a fight for survival. The cold wasn't trying to freeze humans instantly. It was quietly stealing their body heat, minute by minute, until their own bodies could no longer keep them alive. But humans had an even bigger problem. Compared to the animals around them, ancient humans had almost every disadvantage. A wolf carried a thick coat that trapped warm air. A muskox grew a dense layer of fur before winter arrived. Even smaller animals survived because their bodies were built to keep heat in. Humans weren't. We had thin skin, very little body hair, long arms and long legs that lost heat quickly. Even worse, our large brains demanded a constant supply of energy. As our bodies struggled to stay warm, they also had to keep one of the most energy-hungry organs in nature alive. Some archaeologists believe this made long journeys especially dangerous for early humans. Children lost heat faster than adults. Older people weakened sooner. An injury, exhaustion, or even a single night without enough warmth could quickly turn a healthy traveller into the slowest member of the group. Nature had already given other animals everything they needed. Humans were different. We weren't born with better claws, better teeth, or thicker fur. We were born with a body that forced us to solve problems instead of growing our way out of them. But they found another way. For early humans, the first answer was surprisingly simple. If animals survived the cold with their skin, why couldn't humans use it too? After a successful hunt, the meat wasn't the only thing worth saving. The hide mattered just as much. Some archaeologists have found stone tools with wear patterns that suggest people scraped animal skins thousands of years ago. They likely removed fat and tissue before leaving the hides to dry. A fresh hide would quickly rot. A cleaned one could last much longer. Imagine pulling a heavy animal hide over your shoulders. It blocks the wind. It takes the bite out of the cold. For the first time, your own skin isn't facing the weather alone. It wasn't comfortable. It was stiff. It was heavy. And it probably smelled terrible. But it could mean the difference between making it through a freezing night or not. It was a clever beginning. But there was one problem. The hide didn't stay where it needed to. The wind still found its way inside. Warmth still escaped. Something was still missing. Using animal hides was a huge step forward, but it didn't solve the real problem. The hides slipped as people moved. Cold air found the smallest openings. Warmth disappeared faster than anyone realized. The difference between life and death was no longer finding a hide. It was making that hide actually work. And that single breakthrough would change human survival forever. The breakthrough wasn't bigger animals. It wasn't thicker hides. It was something small enough to fit in the palm of a hand, a bone needle. Archaeologists have discovered carefully carved bone needles at prehistoric sites. Each one is small, simple, easy to overlook. But this tiny tool changed what animal hides could become. Picture someone sitting beside a fire after a hunt. A cleaned hide rests across their lap. In one hand is a strip of animal sinew. In the other is a bone needle. One stitch, then another. Slowly, two loose pieces of hide become one. Open gaps begin to disappear. The hide no longer hangs from the shoulders. It starts to wrap around the body. It stays in place as people walk. It keeps more warm air close to the skin. That was the real breakthrough. Humans didn't just wear animal hides anymore. They shaped them to fit the body they were trying to protect. It wasn't a bigger animal that changed history. It was a tiny tool that let humans build a second skin. Now, a single tool could not keep a people alive. What mattered was everything built around it. One person prepared the materials. Another repaired worn gear before the next journey. Parents taught their children by letting them watch, practice, and learn. The oldest members carried experience that no stone tool could replace. If that knowledge was lost, every mistake had to be learned again. Season after season, these skills became part of everyday life. Not because they were remarkable, because survival depended on them. What began as one useful invention became a habit shared by the whole group. A tool could wear out, a person could die, but knowledge could outlive them both. This changed everything. The wind never lets up. A small group keeps moving across the frozen ground. One hunter stops for a moment. He pulls the loose hide over his shoulder again. It slips almost immediately. Beside him, another traveller keeps walking. Nothing needs adjusting. Every step stays the same. The cold cannot find an easy way in. Hours later, one person is exhausted before the journey is over. The other still has the strength to keep moving. The difference wasn't who was tougher. It was who could carry warmth with them instead of fighting for it every few minutes. For the first time, humans weren't just surviving the cold, they were taking it with them wherever they went. Humans didn't conquer the cold because they were stronger. They conquered it because they could change what nature gave them. When the body reached its limit, the mind kept going. That may be the greatest survival advantage our species has ever evolved. Tomorrow morning you'll pull on your clothes without giving them a second thought. But every layer you wear is part of a survival story that began when ancient humans learned to replace the fur they never had. It wasn't fashion. It wasn't comfort. It was the difference between seeing another sunrise or becoming another forgotten trail in the snow. Yet even the best clothing couldn't solve every problem. When the sun disappeared, the cold returned, and in the darkness, a new enemy was waiting. In our next story, we'll discover how mastering fire became the survival breakthrough that changed ancient human life forever.